Gather for screenings of The King and I and It's a Wonderful Life, plus world premiere restorations of Horse Feathers and Shanghai Express. Let's Movie, the 2016 TCM Classic Film Festival, April 28th through May 1st in Hollywood. For more information, visit tcm.com/festival.
Hi everybody, I'm Ben Mankiewicz. We're combing through the library of Milestone films this evening as we celebrate Milestone's 25th anniversary. Now Milestone, if you don't know, is an independent distribution company with a reputation for finding and releasing some of the most obscure and artistic films from all over the world. Returning as my co-hosts are the founders of Milestone Films, Dennis Doros and Amy Heller. Welcome back, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we have a film from Cuba made in partnership with the Soviet Union from 1964. It's I Am Cuba. This is an important movie, I think, for people who care about films to see, for people who care about American history in the early 1960s, and for people who care about what's happening now, since this film all of a sudden has taken on much greater relevance given what's happened in the last 4 months with American relations with Cuba. First, what's the backstory on this movie?
The Soviet Union wanted to do a series of films with their within their sphere, one in Hungary, one in Poland, one in Cuba. This is the only one that was made that survives, I believe. And they sent Mikhail Kalatozov, who had just won the 1957 Cannes Prize for The Cranes Are Flying, to Cuba to make a celebrated film. When they got there, it was a week after the Bay of Pigs. The revolution was still in its exciting time. The people were optimistic, the schools were being built and people were being educated and hospitals were being built. And you can see that they kind of lose themselves in this beautiful Cuban culture that they saw.
So this was an effort by the Soviet Union working with Cuba to make, I mean, essentially a well-made by a skilled director, but a propaganda film.
Yeah.
But there are 4 different compelling stories in there. They're all credible. They all feel authentic. It is hard for me to imagine that leaders in the Soviet Union and in Cuba didn't see this movie and think, great, we got what we were looking for, but they were disappointed.
Well, in Cuba, they call it I Am Not Cuba, because they never felt like it was really their portrait of themselves. It felt imposed.
Felt imposed by the Soviets.
And also by this weird aesthetic that they brought, which is so rarefied and so pushed. I mean, this is really an art film.
Yes, that's right.
And this is an art film as a propaganda film. It's a complicated proposition.
Yeah. Was there any international reaction to the movie, or was it essentially buried at the time of its release?
It was never seen in anywhere outside of Russia and Cuba. It showed in maybe 8 places in Russia, which is astonishingly low, and they really buried it. They brought Kalatozov and Yurosevsky up on the charge of formalism, which is the charge Kalatozov kept getting over his 60-year career.
Formalism meaning what?
Making art instead of films for the people.
Right.
That it was too arty, too much about art for art's sake as opposed to film for the people's sake.
There's a lot of art.
There's a lot of art
in every one of these stories. Also, some of the production history is great. So this movie is shot, as you mentioned, 1962. Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. And in the middle of the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kalatozov gets the army, the Cuban army, to move 1,000 soldiers away from where they're stationed to shoot some scene for them. That's some power right in the middle of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Well, one of the things is the Cuban people did participate. That Yevgeny Yevtushenko, the Russian poet, wrote the script with Carlos Pineda Barnett, one of their best novelists. Carlos Fariñas wrote the music. And not only did Fidel Castro, who was a big supporter of movies, as was Lenin, but also Raul Castro took him up to the Sierra Maestra mountains to see where they fought.
See where the sort of revolution took hold. Yeah, first.
And Che Guevara was there to advise, too. So this was really supported by the Cuban government as well.
So Raul, Fidel, and Che all sort of technical advisors on the movie.
Absolutely.
I think it's one of the few films you can say that about.
For those reasons alone, it's worth seeing. Guys, thanks very much. Have a look at it. From 1964, here's I Am Cuba, also known by its Spanish translation, Soy Cuba.